Hey everyone, this is Vishal Krishna, the founder of theUpStreamLife.com. Today I have with me Anish Basu Roy, the founder of TagZ, a urban Gen Z snack brand. It's a digital-first brand. They've also been in Shark Tank. Therefore, there's a lot of buzz and interest about them. They've raised money from Ashneer and a couple of others. Let me tell you, you learn something about building a business when you listen to this podcast. Anish is curious and has led his life to believe that you got to be energetic all the time. This episode is brought to you by Finverse.guru, a financial upskilling platform. You are a BCom student, you can get to upskill yourself immediately. So go check out Finverse.guru. Also, ask a lot of questions and I will connect you with Anish. Hey Anish, how are you?
Absolutely fine. So good to see you.
No, it's good to see you as well. I miss our cycling.
I miss a lot more about those good old days.
Yeah,
not just cycling.
Now you've grown, the startup ecosystem has grown and you've grown with it.
Right.
You run TagZ now.
Yeah.
And I know we did an Instagram live a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But TagZ has been so much more after that, right?
Yeah.
What is TagZ for our audience, please?
I think in very simple words, it's basically, a urban Gen Z snack brand, right? With a very simple mission. We are saying we want people to eat better and lead an active lifestyle.
And fit too?
So fitness for a lot of people means different things, right? And hence, we are possibly not, as a brand, passing a judgment on it, because for somebody it might mean, having six-pack abs. For somebody, it might just mean that I'm able to do whatever I want to do.
Right? And I want a snack.
Yeah. So we are saying, we are just focused around helping people eat better, not necessarily healthy. We just want them to eat better and lead a active lifestyle.
You called it pop chips, didn't you?
So pop chips is one of the product categories that we do.
That's how it started?
That's how it started. But then the vision always was to be a multi-category snack brand, because we believe that what the consumer is saying is that snacking today, by and large, packaged snacks particularly, are indexed either completely towards taste or indexed completely towards health. There's nothing which is kind of straddling the two in between. And that's why we decided that we'll focus on 4 categories, which is potato chips, dips, chocolates, and cookies. And basically offer consumers snacking experiences which are top-notch on taste and happen to be better for you as well.
I want to take you through all these steps that you went through, right? You came from a world of FMCG. You also went to a phone manufacturer.
Yeah.
I know who we're talking about. Yeah. And before the smartphones came in, you started up. We'll get into that journey too. When you get into manufacturing again, especially an FMCG brand, right? What are the things that have changed about India? Because distribution is the key. Manufacturing is also a part of it. And then there's this whole brand building concept that's changed today.
Sure.
Right? You could just launch it out of a website and you could sell better.
Right.
You don't have to be in stores, but you do both. We'll get into that. So I wanted to talk about, yes, your previous company, you were like an early Udan and you just left.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, entrepreneurship is tough.
Yeah.
You started this brand. Why? How did you choose this snackable brand? You could have done something else if you wanted. Why this?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And there are 2 parts to it. I'm so glad you asked that question, because I do get asked that question a lot of times. But coming from you, I know that it has a lot more import, right? So let me be very honest. There is really no personal story why I got into this business, right? I'm not doing this because I'm a fitness enthusiast. I'm not doing this because I'm passionate about food or whatever. It was always a very, very research-led decision to get into this business. Been an entrepreneur 10 years now. So TagZ is my second venture, the first venture being Shotang, which was predominantly a tech-led play. After I exited that business back in December 2017, decided to dial down for about a year and a half. Use that opportunity, most importantly, to think about what I wanted to do next. And I think one of the things which was very, very clear to me is that, yes, people talk about product market fit all the time. Very few people actually speak about founder market fit, which basically means that as a founder, if I have core competence in a particular line of business, my chances of succeeding in that business are far higher.
Yes.
My chances of hitting product market fit are possibly a lot higher and faster, if I might put it that way. So thanks to my experience with Coke and then Nokia, nearly a decade, I think what was very obvious to me is that I wanted to get back to the consumer brand space. So I think that was decision number one.
In 2017, a lot of brands were coming about. You talk about boat today. Boat in 2017 was not what it is today.
Absolutely.
Right. So that was the decision. That was the moot point that, okay, let me get into it.
So number one, obviously wanted to get back to consumer brand because that's my expertise. That's what I wanted to understand. And I still remember I was 37 back then. I'm 40, on the wrong side of 40 now.
Yeah, both of us.
I think it was high time that old monkey learnt new tricks. I think it was important that old monkey now plays old tricks.
Absolutely.
So consumer brand is the first decision. Did deep research in a lot of categories, by the way. So I looked at personal care, I looked at innerwear, I looked at eyewear, I looked at athleisure, lots of categories. I was very close to doing a personal care brand, by the way.
And there were so many of them. I'm glad you didn't do it.
So 2019, there weren't actually too many of them, right? I think that was still a period where, brands were picking up. I was very close to doing a personal care brand, but one thing that held me back from doing it, because I studied the P&Ls of a lot of personal care brands, what was very obvious is that at an early stage, most of these companies were spending anywhere between a 50 to 60% on marketing. Even at a mature stage, a lot of them even today spend 40% of their net sales on marketing, which basically means personal care even today is a relatively consumer want category. It's not a consumer need, and hence you need to spend marketing dollars. I wanted to bootstrap it. I was very clear that I'm going to be putting in my money, building the product, building the business in the beginning before I raise external money, if ever we do that. Which means I didn't have money to burn.
At that time, yeah, you're taking a year off and you had to get this right.
Yeah.
What does deep research mean to you? Because this is the second time I've heard that term in a week.
Right.
Narayan Murthy said this, that India doesn't have a great deep marketing firm.
Right.
Or market research firm.
Right.
You said you did market research,
right.
Looked at P&Ls of a lot of these consumer care companies, personal care companies, pardon me, and you thought they'd burn a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what type of research are you talking about?
So essentially the research that I'm possibly alluding to is obviously a lot of commercial research. Commercial research will typically involve having a lot of conversations with suppliers, with manufacturers, with customers, with consumers, right? It obviously involves a certain amount of financial research, right? Where I spoke about studying P&Ls of consumers, companies in similar spaces, right? And I think there's a lot to learn and understand about the growth of a business just by looking at the P&L, right? How much are they really spending on, COGS? How much are they really spending on direct marketing? How much are they really spending on direct costs like logistics? What are the fixed costs as a percentage of the overall sales? I think a lot of these are very strong leading indicators of the health of a business in the shorter term and in the longer term, right? So I think a lot of my deep research was based on a lot of commercial research, right? Which means deep interactions, conversations with manufacturers, suppliers, brands, consumers, customers, and a lot of financial research.
You spend time.
Lots of time. Okay. Close to about a year, right? And I had to do that across multiple categories. So that's something which further compounded the whole exercise. But
so you did that religiously?
Yeah. I think that was possibly the only thing that I dedicated a lot of time to. And the reason to do food was that it was very, very obvious to me that this is a need, simply because today you can build a food business without necessarily spending a lot on marketing, because inherently I think India is at a stage, particularly if you look at it from the lens of the top 30-40 million households, I think all of us are consciously, subconsciously looking out for better food, right? And there's an inherent need. So in a market where there is consumer need, if you are able to hit product market fit, I think your chances of success are a lot higher.
And the differentiation being, there are a lot of these snackable brands out there, mostly kids like that kind of food. Kids like it because it's salty or sometimes spicy. You brought in something in the mid level. I think it has subtle taste. Let me put it that way. Was that the reason why it worked at that time? That, okay, I'm going to come into a place where neither is it for kids, neither is it for somebody who says, okay, I want to look for something in fitness.
Right.
But something in the middle where you don't have to be guilty about. Is that the hypothesis?
So I think the need gap, which we could identify very clearly, and I think that's a need gap across age groups.
Yes.
See, for kids, what happens is that they are usually the consumers, but then the buyer is typically the parent who's making the decision. Right. But I think across all kinds of age brackets, the need gap was very clear that consumers love their potato chips, right?
Across the board. I take my daughter out for a walk.
Yeah.
She'll see the chip store and she'll buy a packet of chips. It's interesting.
So everybody loves potato chips, but the fact is that everybody is aware that potato chips, because they're fried, they're not good for health. And either they try and ration the consumption or they're looking for something better. Now, something better up until now, in most contexts was, let's say, let's do makhana because that's not fried. But consumption behavior never changes so drastically. I can't change the taste buds of a country from potato chips to makhanas overnight, and hence makhanas are still a relatively limited market. We decided consumers love potato chips, we will give them better potato chips, right? Consumers love their cookies, we will give them better cookies. Consumers love their chocolates, we'll give them better chocolates. That's the very, very simple insight on which the entire business and the brand is based. But obviously that requires significant investments in product development and technology, right?
So where did you start? You got into this category. And did it start with product development? Did you go to a nutritionist? Did you go in some kind of food research institute, get those nutritionists in? What did you do? How did you build this thing?
So, company incorporated in June 2019. We launched only in March 2020.
Yeah, that's when we did the podcast too, you know, and that's when the COVID happened. Unfortunate. But it was D2C at that point, right? You could.
We were reasonably omnichannel even back then, right? And we've kind of navigated that.
Yeah, that's another thing I want to talk about. You know, how did you start? You have to build distribution on all ends.
Right.
So how did that happen? Go on. Let's start with how did you set it up?
So I think the product development piece is something that we've always earmarked a lot of our time, effort, bandwidth, and capital for, because we believe doing an innovative product is very important, right? So even today, we are the only brand in the country which makes popped potato chips 100% in India. Right? There are a few other brands now who are doing popped potato chips, but then they still import a certain part of their raw material, packaging materials, right? Even today, we are the only brand which is doing dark chocolate center-filled hemp cookies, right? With 30% less maida.
Hemp cookies also. We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, that's interesting.
We're doing dark chocolate cigars, right? We are kind of making dark chocolate a lot more mainstream by commercially molding them into interesting shapes and sizes, right? Because up until now, consumers have always believed dark chocolate is bitter, dark chocolate is not interesting, and slabs, right? So we are making it a lot more interesting, and hence making dark chocolate mainstream, which we believe is the best form of better chocolate, right? So each of these elements have required us to invest in product development, but then we've kind of really hacked the code. It's between, me, my co-founder, and maybe a junior food technologist who work on all the recipes, all the formulations, right? Getting the price points right, getting the packaging right, getting the ingredient profile right.
And the manufacturing is outsourced today?
Manufacturing is outsourced, but
that's a good thing about India, right? You have enough people who could do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, initially, we have to invest in the capex.
Because they won't give you the quantities.
Yeah, because in the beginning, you have to invest in the capex and some of the critical capex simply because these are unheard of products. Manufacturers don't know whether it will be a success or a failure, right? So we have to go ahead and invest in the capex initially. But then thereafter, obviously, today we have a lot of partners who want to work with us, become our manufacturing partners and things like those. That's something that happens with scale.
Every brand has something called a tipping point, right? Let's talk about the pop chips category itself. One of them was an award-winning category. Yeah, you can tell us about it.
Yeah.
Did that change people's acceptance of tags? Or for you, you're not a guy who's going to stop at one laurel. You're adding more categories, right? So was that the tipping point, though, that one product success? The product that I was referring to in the morning, I got sold out and all that. You won an award for that, didn't you?
Yeah. So Masala Trekkin.
Yes, that was your first product?
That was actually one of our first products. So masala, cream onion, and salt. Those are the three flavors that we launched. And Masala Trekkin this year got recognized by Channelier, which is the largest FMCG award today, as the product of the year in snacking as a category. Deeply proud of that because that's kind of kudos to my co-founder and a small food technology team for having cracked a product like this. I think every business has multiple tipping points, to be very honest. Now, maybe Shark Tank was one such tipping point, right?
For India, for sure, in terms of
right, for the brand and everything, it was definitely one tipping point. But let me put it this way: I've always
Did you go to Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah.
Did you sell there? I have to watch that episode then. I don't see TV, so I'm asking. Did you sell there? How was it?
Yeah. So Shark Tank, I think, was a game changer for us.
Okay.
To be very honest.
That was season 1.
Season 1, episode 2.
Yeah.
And I think the amount of consumer love that we got after that episode is just phenomenal.
Did the sharks bite?
They did more than bite.
They invested.
So Ashneer won the deal on the show, while of course Aman and Namita and Ashneer were competing for the deal. And I'm deeply grateful for their confidence in the brand. So Ashneer won the deal on the show, but then Namita also invested immediately after because she was extremely fond of what we were doing, and she's a strong believer in what we do. So both Namita and Ashneer invested in the brand. But I think most importantly, it's the show which kind of really gave us lots and lots of eyeballs.
I can tell the whole of India is watching it, actually, right? I haven't seen it personally. Let me be honest. It's in Hindi, right?
It's in Hindi, yeah.
I would have, if I would have pitched there, my Hindi would have been so bad. I feel like a Mithun Chakrabarti in Agnipath.
Right.
Would have been talking like that. I would have been so bad. But did you manage to sell better there?
Yeah, of course. And I think not only did our business go up significantly. So last 18 months, if you look at our business, we've grown top lines by 9x. But we've done that while improving EBITDA significantly. We've possibly had from being a minus 131% EBITDA, we are now possibly just about a minus 9, minus 10% EBITDA. So it's
which is good, which is brand. So there's brand recall because of that show.
Yeah. And by the way, all of this, in spite of the fact that we spend less than 9% on marketing.
No, good to know. Good to know.
So that's something which has worked out really well for us. Most importantly, I think the consumer love is the most important aspect. We did something very interesting and innovative. We were one of the first brands in the country to launch something called as a consumer stock option plan.
Okay.
We got oversubscribed by 756%.
Was it some kind of subscription where I buy the product in advance or something?
Yeah, so this is almost like a stock option plan to an extent, which helps consumers become part of the longer term wealth creation journey in the company as well.
For what reason? Because they share data with you?
No, so they invest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a deposit.
Yeah, they actually invested their money with the company, right? So we got oversubscribed by 756% there.
So did you raise deposits? That's amazing.
Yeah, so these are consumer stock option plans.
So how much would each consumer invest?
So it could be from ticket sizes ranging from 5K to 10K, maybe more, right?
And that helps? That means you must have a very good CFO to structure that deal, though.
We don't actually have a CFO, to be very honest.
Seriously? Then if anybody is watching this, do get in touch with TagZ.
So I think for the last 10 years of being an entrepreneur, I'm a little bit of a CFO myself and a little bit of a CA and a company secretary and a lawyer. Yeah. I think you have to learn all of that, right? You have to learn.
No, you're a growing organization now, and you mentioned about marketing, only 9% spent on marketing. But you also mentioned that the EBITDA is negative at this point of time, correct?
Yeah, we're just about a 9% negative. Yeah, okay. That's only in the interest of the fact that we still continue to grow pretty fast.
Absolutely, and spend on new categories also, right? D2C business is all about marketing.
Correct.
And you said everybody gets confused between social media, performance marketing, and brand marketing.
Correct.
Right. You want to take a minute to explain what these three things could mean for a younger entrepreneur out there and why they should get each of them right. What works for a D2C brand is something that you have to tell me.
So, number one, let me possibly bust the myth here to an extent. I feel that I don't agree with this whole concept of a D2C brand.
Okay, fine.
D2C, in my view, is just a channel.
Absolutely. Right? It's from your website?
Yeah.
Or through Amazon maybe, or through...
Technically, that is e-commerce and quick commerce, right?
Correct.
So
that's a good way of saying it. We'll get into that.
Yeah. So D2C, in my view, is just one of the channels that a brand has to reach its consumers, right? Which is directly through their website.
Yes.
Now, I believe that India is a country where offline and e-commerce today are fairly large and matured channels, much larger markets in terms of being able to sell to consumers, right? So I don't think any brand has a choice but to be omni-channel. But I think what a lot of brands are today, to be very honest, are, brands are digital first.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is that you can launch your product initially on your website, spend money on performance marketing, right? Which is basically your ad spends on Facebook, on Google, let's say, Twitter or LinkedIn. Those are predominantly the paid marketing platforms on which you spend money. And that's all performance marketing led.
But it's just reinforcing that you exist, those kind of marketing.
I think that's the early customer adoption, right? Early consumer validation, right? I think as next step, you see almost every brand eventually going on to e-commerce at least, which is Amazon, Big Basket, Flipkart. Today quick commerce is also a very large channel. Swiggy, Instamart, Zepto, Blinkit, channels like these. So eventually all D2C brands are also available on these e-commerce channels. You have to spend money on these channels as well, not just in the form of margins that you give to these platforms, but you also have to spend on visibility, which is by and large akin to performance marketing spends, right? Metrics here that are typically measured are either ROAS, right, or CAC, or LTV, or maybe all of them, right? Offline, it works very, very differently, where you typically give a margin to your distributors, to your super stockists, to your retailers, right? And there the marketing spends typically are on trade marketing, right? Which means you will invest on visibility, you will invest on, putting up racks or any kind of, merchandising material.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
All that, yeah.
Right.
Interesting. And then there's social media. Which people get confused with the first two. Right.
Yeah. So I think there is very clearly performance marketing, right, which is very, very directly linked to sales to an extent. You spend X amount of money, you derive a certain amount of ROAS, and that's basically something that leads to your overall sales. There's brand marketing, of course, right, which may not necessarily at all points in time directly lead to conversions, but then that's something which is helping improve your reach, driving recall, driving awareness for the brand. Right. And then I think social media marketing is all about engagement, re-engagement, right? That is where you've possibly acquired consumers, build a community, and you are constantly engaging and re-engaging with them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you are a fan of creating communities. I know you do something called the fuck up trips.
Yeah.
Why do that? That's something interesting to build your own brand.
So as I said right in the beginning, we are not just about better food. We are about promoting an active lifestyle. Right, and let me share why I'm talking about an active lifestyle. I think health and fitness. People have different versions, different kinds of understanding. For us, health and fitness is a very simple definition, which is at all ages you should be able to do physically whatever your heart desires. Right. Yeah. In our view, that's the simplest definition of health and fitness. Now, fat diets can possibly help you lose weight, gain muscle. But I think these are all short-term interventions which are very difficult and unsustainable. I think the only way to ensure longevity of whatever you're doing with your body, on your body, is to constantly watch what you're eating, right? Monitor, control, eliminate harmful ingredients as much as possible, and possibly lead a very active lifestyle. Because the moment you become passionate about sports, about travel, about outdoors, right, you will possibly want to sustain a
good lifestyle,
a healthy lifestyle as well. So that's why we try and push these two concepts together. We believe in helping people get passionate about these two things.
So it's got travel, it's got sharing of...
so the brand basically revolves around travel, sports, and outdoors.
In fact, snacking has got a lot to do with travel.
Absolutely.
Right? You pick it up in the airport.
Correct.
Or you're in your car on the way to Western Ghats, or you bike it down.
Pretty much.
Right? That's the reason.
Pretty much. Now, because the brand revolves around travel, Fuck Up Trips as a property is something that we created, which brings together people from different walks of life. So we have founders who come and participate in this. We have, bloggers who come and participate in this. We have, influencers and creators who come and participate in this. We have corporate folks who come and participate in this. Basically, the concept is in 4.2 minutes, you have to narrate the story about one particular trip where everything just fell apart.
Okay.
Everything just went wrong, right? Everything just got fucked up. Right, and we believe those are the stories which are worth sharing and telling, right? And hence,
and those videos are on YouTube, aren't they?
They are on YouTube.
I've seen some of them.
They are on YouTube.
Interesting. I'm glad. I would request people to go check out those videos. Right, you should. Now coming back, you built this community. You understood marketing. What's the most difficult aspect of being a brand today? Just 10 years ago, I mean, if you and I had a conversation, and we were in around 14, 15 when we met. We would ask ourselves how many Indian brands exist.
Yeah.
But today, apparently, there are 600 of them, going to 6,000 or 10,000 in 4-5 years. And it's going to be $100 billion market. Is that a real market estimation? Do you see that happening? Because there's a lot of folks from the investing world who believe that the TAM is only 20 million people, perhaps. I don't know, India is so vast, but here you were talking about Shark Tank, you're saying everybody watches it as well across smaller towns.
Correct.
So why not consume these brands also?
Right.
So are brands going beyond urban cities today? Are they in smaller towns? What scares you when you're a brand today? I mean, because at the end of the day, you want to be profitable, you want to build a large business. You also want some FMCG guys to come and say, let's partner or something, large guys, right? what are the broad macros about India that scare you and for the brand?
Let me talk about what kind of excites me.
Yes, please.
Right. I agree.
I agree. With an entrepreneur, if it scares, it's actually exciting.
Yeah,
it's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity.
Yes.
So I think while yes, the consuming or the transacting consumer base today might be 20-30 million.
Yes.
Right. But let's also be aware of the fact that these 20-30 million people who are transacting actually represent the number of households as well, to a very large extent. Because not everybody in the household actually does a transaction. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
So in my view, this is possibly at least 20, 30, 40 million households which are transacting. And this is today when our GDP is the 5th largest in the world, right? I'm bullish about India, right? Because being a consumption-led economy, I believe maybe in another 5 years from now, right, this number of 20, 30, 40 million households is definitely going to jump to at least 100 million households. Right. So what that means is that the consuming class, the transacting consuming class of people is going to become a much larger market.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think any macroeconomist possibly disagrees with this. Now, it might happen in 5 years, it might happen in 7.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is that we are maybe just a few years away.
Structurally there, that consumption will take us there.
Absolutely. So we are possibly just a few years away from being a market which has 100 million households, which have the purchasing power and the ability to buy and experiment with new products.
Okay.
So that's as far as the consumer market is concerned. Now let's look at what's happening on the brands side.
Yes,
historically, over the last 50 years, I think India has been dominated by multinational players or possibly India homegrown players. And the fundamental strengths that they've had is access to capital, distribution infrastructure, right, and manufacturing capabilities, right, and they have excelled at each one of those things, right.
They did that for 50 years, a head start of 50 years.
Correct. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, younger brands like us,
they have a legacy.
They basically have an expertise at selling mass products. Yeah, right. Yeah. But I think fundamentally the world over, not just in India, I think the era of a mass brand is somewhat coming to an end.
I got it. Microcosms, micro loyalties is the way to go.
Let's look at it this way. 10 years ago, right, the time that we are talking about, possibly in the entire household, we would typically have one brand of shampoo and mother, father, daughter, son, everybody will use the same shampoo. But today in the same household, right, I'm sure there are at least 3 to 4 different brands of shampoos because son says, I don't want to use the shampoo that dad uses because he's using a shampoo which is possibly anti-hair fall, right? I don't need anti-hair fall.
I see that movement already.
Right. Yeah. So the consumer segmentation is becoming sharper, right? And I think that is something which needs a lot of product-led innovation, right? That is something where I believe smaller companies will be a lot more agile at.
Okay.
So that's on the brand and the product side. Another aspect on the brand side is that I think we are 5 years away from seeing tremendous amount of something that I call brand obsolescence, right? And what is brand obsolescence?
And everybody suffers from it. People just drop from it, right? Maybe.
So why brand obsolescence is likely to get accelerated is because today we have a huge consuming class, non-consuming class as well, which is consuming a lot of content, by the way. People down the pop strata, right? And they are consuming content not just which is India-based, but international as well, right? So they are all getting primed possibly for an era where they will have opinions, they will have views.
There's promiscuous opinions, promiscuous,
lots of things.
To the brand.
So what that means is they may not necessarily resonate with brands which are 40 years old.
I agree.
Right? They will, because brands, you have a relationship with the brand. Now, if a brand is 40 years old, is still drumming a message which is, 30 years old, you can't expect a young 20-year-old to resonate with that. He will want something which he identifies with. It defines
that person.
Absolutely. So I think these 3 things put together will lead to a lot of brand obsolescence. Larger brands will possibly not become obsolete completely, but will have to embellish their positioning to an extent, and that will create a lot of opportunities for younger new age brands.
These larger brands. I mean, I think it's time that they work with. I've seen Dabur making a few moves. I think Pepsi India also makes a few moves.
Right.
Also. So what do you think? They should make these moves, work with you guys?
So it's obviously happening globally.
They talk to you. Yeah, it happens. It happens in America.
It's happening in globally. I think that's a playbook which is getting accelerated in India as well. But regardless of that, see, as a founder, my vision is very clear, right? We want to be the fastest digital first food brand to get to 1,000 crore top line number.
Which you can get to. You won't believe it. I mean, in 16, 17, most of the brands that I met were hardly sub 5-6 crores. I mean, most of them are 100 plus crores. Boat is
absolutely
close as already 1,000. It's an interesting development. Anish, I mean, I've been reading a lot of reports, and because I've covered retail for 15 years as well, distribution is a major part of building a brand. You'll be a digital first brand. I'm very happy. But you've also got a physical presence or a phygital presence, so you call it. Every brand's going after India or the Bharat, as the investors call it. How is that panning out for you? In a sense, have you built out a distribution ecosystem? And what is it? How different is it from the larger brands? You should answer it because you're a young brand.
So number one, I think at an early stage, there are a few things that we learned. Some of those things, obviously, I knew from my past experience, running FMCG businesses. Offline is a lot more complex than online. Simply because it involves, cultivating relationships, running large teams.
Credit cycles.
Also, from sheer capital efficiency standpoint, it is one of those channels which is in the early stages not very capital efficient. Rotation of capital is not as fast, right? In the early stages, right? But yes, it is one of the most profitable channels, right? So contrary to popular belief, offline is actually a lot more profitable at a CM2 level than any of the other online channels, by the way. But the challenge at an early stage is that if you are required to invest a large sum of money upfront to even, let's say, list with any of the modern trade players, right? It's a lot of capital that you're putting aside, right? In a way, funding maybe somebody else's business while still being a small business.
Which is why a lot of brands burn money there.
Exactly. Yes. So, as a small and a young brand with limited finite resources, we said we're going to stay away from offline, right? Until a certain point in time, right? Even today, about 60-65% of our business is digital, right? Only 40% of our business is offline. So, I think these are factors that people need to be mindful of. Can we perpetually remain digital first and 60% of our business will be offline? Unlikely. When we are possibly a 1,000 crore company, I don't anticipate more than 30% of our business to be online. 70% of it is going to be offline. This year, we'll possibly accelerate our expansion offline a lot more, right? Also because in offline, you really need to get your price points really, really right? Because you don't have a lot of levers to influence the consumer.
And the pack sizes.
Correct.
Too,
now we have that, right? So today, our pop potato chips, they are available at price points as low as 30, right? Which is very, very affordable. Today we have cookies which are available at price points as low as $40. Very affordable, right? And at par with any other competing brand, right? Lay's Gourmet today sells at 30. We sell at 30 as well. Brands like Corner Toast today sell at 35, whereas we are at 30. ITC's Dark Fantasy is at $40. We are at $40 as well with what we would like to believe is a superior or a better product. So I think you need to get the price points right. You need to get your supply chain bang on. And all those things are things that take time. We've taken our time. And hence this year onwards, we'll possibly focus a lot more going forward offline.
It'll be with super stockists, absolutely.
Of course, I think you need to work with partners, with distributors who are large, right? That is something which helps you a lot. But then obviously, you also need to work on building these relationships over a period of time. Now, as a brand, we are very, very clear. We work with distribution partners with a very clear understanding that, we don't change our distribution partners that often, right? Because if a partner came and chose to work with us when we were nobody, right? Decided to invest in a business like ours, right? We owe it to them to possibly walk the whole journey. And not just change partners just because now the business has scaled up, our requirements are different. We should, at that point in time, possibly work with the partners and support them and help them scale up along with us.
And TagZ is done well in which region?
By design, physical distribution by design. I think a lot of our business is Bangalore and Hyderabad, Chennai centric. One geography which really surprised us, contrary to expectations, was Delhi NCR. I think the product got really, really accepted well there. West has been a relatively tougher experience for us.
Why would you say more choices, more affluent?
Not more choices. So if you look at it, and this is going to sound a little detailed here, right?
Please.
Factors that play a role: store size, store format, number one, right? So in South, you have larger stores. In the North, you have larger stores. In the western part of the country, where real estate is expensive, Bombay and Pune, you have store formats which are smaller.
About 2,000 square feet?
Less than that. So the average store size in, let's say, South is possibly closer to that 1,500, 2,000. In the North, it's possibly similar. But then Bombay, Pune it's mostly 500 square foot. Now, when the store size is small, you cannot make your products that visible. The consumer doesn't walk around the store as much, right? And hence, the one lever that you have, which is visibility, becomes difficult for a young brand like ours, right? Which means in those kind of stores, people will typically pick up brands that they've already known, they've already seen. Store format, number one. Number two, store walk-ins. And that's consumer behavior, right? So while in South, the store walk-ins store formats are large, store walk-ins relatively are smaller, are lesser, right? So average store walk-in in a city like Bangalore for a 2,000 square foot store would be about 500 to 600 per day. Whereas up north, the same kind of a store format will end up doing at least 700 to 800 walk-ins a day, right? Bombay, Pune, the relatively affluent class don't even go to the stores. They will get their household help or their drivers to go and pick, or they will get their products home delivered, right? Store walk-ins are fewer. Number three, right? Propensity to experiment. The northern consumer, we believe, is a lot more open to experiment, right? The southern consumer is a little bit more conservative, right?
Got it.
The consumer in the West possibly has the propensity, but then again, because of the store formats and the store walk-ins being low, it's very difficult to reach the consumer itself directly. So hence, Bombay as a market, we tried to enter that market and we realized that we are still not ready for it. We need to earmark much larger investments to be able to do well in that market, and we said we're going to deprioritize.
What's the break-even per region? Well, how do you look at it? Because brands typically look at that.
No, so I don't think we are still at that stage, to be very honest.
You're in acquisition phase at this point. So
Correct.
You're okay with
Correct.
it. Yeah.
And cost structures in every geography are also very, very different, right? So you can't say that, okay, once I hit, let's say, a 5 crore per city kind of a number, I'm going to break even necessarily, right? Because cost structures in every city is very, very different. Your manpower costs are different. Your distribution costs are different. Your need to invest in marketing or visibility is very different. So
that's good, Anish. I mean, these answers are fair because India is growing. We can't diss consumption. Consumption will grow. So you have to experiment with formats.
Correct.
But is there a particular modern trade type of category that you like in terms of stores? Is it some large brands that you go after, or is it the mid-size, family-owned modern trade retailers?
So we've basically focused thus far mostly on channels which are channels called standalone modern trade, right?
Yeah.
So for viewers from Bangalore, they'll possibly have seen a top in town store somewhere or the other, right? That's not necessarily a chain of stores. These are all independent owner-run businesses. So we've typically focused on the standalone modern trade stores. We focused on store formats like the premium liquor stores, right? The premium wellness stores, the premium gourmet stores, the premium dates and nuts stores, airports, right? Vending machines, tuck shops inside corporates. We actually sell in pubs and bars on the table, right?
Is that a good category for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we have this whole range of pop chips that we do, which is the premium bar snacking range. Flavors like beer and barbecue, Italian wine and cheese, Thai vodka, tom yum. Right, these are flavors which pair really well with specific kind of alcohol.
That channel must be hard to work with, no? Or maybe Bangalore it works very well.
Yeah, again, it's very, very geography specific. So in Bangalore, for example, you can sell in liquor stores, right? But in Bombay, you can't, right? By law.
Yes.
So it varies, from city to city, of course.
No, this is interesting. I mean, I really wish you all the best. And what's the website? Should they order on the website or go to your local store and pick it up? So
the fastest way to get it delivered is just order on Swiggy Instamart, right?
Yes.
It'll get delivered in less than 30 minutes, right? But of course, you want the whole experience, you want the whole range of products with all the hampers. You need to come to our website with, which is www.tagzfoods.com. Right?
Okay.
For the whole experience. But then if you're looking for fast delivery, you have a party coming up, you have guests unexpectedly dropping by, Swiggy Instamart.
Swiggy Instamart and all the other ones that deliver to you in 10 minutes of course. Whatever they promise you there. You have gift hampers quickly. They can also gift hamper if they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we make something called as the fittest festive hamper, right? Which is basically, our fit cookies, our chips, our dips, and a bunch of those things.
Right.
So fantastic for gifting as well.
No, great. So I want to talk to you now quickly about your first time experience as an entrepreneur. Didn't go well, but you were proud of that experience. Like I said, it was one of the first Udan type of models.
Yeah.
Very early.
Yeah.
What was the learning from that you brought here and didn't make that mistake?
There are so many mistakes I think I've done.
But yet you managed to stay so calm, man. I mean, I'll get into that next question, but you have to tell me what are some of those mistakes?
So I think
this is not the typical, don't make these mistakes, but what it should be personal to you.
So very, very, very personal. I think number one, I realized that we were in a line of business which was predominantly tech-led, and tech isn't my core competence. So I think the founder having core competence in the line of business is exceedingly important. So that's learning number one, right?
What you're good at.
Exactly.
And you came from the FMCG background, brand operations.
Correct.
Got it.
Right. It'll always sound very exciting that you want to do something, market which is booming, or, you want to get into something which is completely novel, completely new. Number two is that first mover advantage sounds great, right? But in most markets, you will typically see that the first mover doesn't really do that well. It's the second player, third players that come and capitalize on it. HDFC Bank, the largest, private bank by market cap, wasn't the first bank.
I agree.
Apple, the most valuable phone brand in the world, wasn't the first smartphone brand, right? So there's always that inherent risk in being the first mover, right? If a market from the outside looks crowded, looks cluttered, what it also means is that it will definitely have opportunities which would be left behind by other players, right? So your chances of survival are far higher, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, as a founder, I always prioritize survival over growth over valuation. Survival is paramount.
Yeah.
So that's number two. First mover advantage is not necessarily something that I always get excited about, right? Number three, focus on value, not valuation. Inherently, I think businesses are meant to generate profits, right? So getting unit economics, margins right is exceedingly important. And that's something which you shouldn't compromise on in the interest of longer term sustainability. See, a few brands, a few companies will obviously get lucky, who will attract a lot of capital and will become disruptive forces, of course.
Yeah, not all of them can be them.
Correct.
Agreed.
So that's number three. Number four, I think we were just chatting about it a while ago. Never obsess about team size. The number of people who work part of it. I think small teams work the best.
Yes, agreed.
Right. I think high-powered teams are important. High-hustle teams are important. High-cost teams are not the only way to build a business, right?
So it's ROI all the time. All the time, sales, hustle.
So I'm very clear that we can't afford to spend more than 15% of what we sell, right? So my wage bill cannot exceed 15% of my net sales, right?
Absolutely.
Because the moment you exceed that, and if the growth doesn't happen, right, then it becomes difficult. So Hindi mein there is a proverb, right?
I might not understand it, but
पैर उतने ही फैलाने चाहिए जितनी चादर हो, right?
Okay. What does that mean?
So you should stretch your legs only as much as your chadar is, right?
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
But if you don't do that, right, then either chadar phat jayegi, right? Either the chadar will tear, right, or your legs will be exposed to the cold.
Yeah.
Both of them are not desirable.
All the time. Those are the learnings.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're always a person who's been positive. You didn't let that get to you. You took that 1 year break, of course. That was fantastic. You continued to golf. You continued to bike.
Yeah.
You continued to cycle.
Yeah.
Continued to stay fit.
Yeah.
And continue to travel.
Right.
How did you manage all this? A lot of people just give up and say, "Oh man, this is not what I want to do anymore."
So let me be honest. मुझे लगता है बैटरी गलत लगी हुई है.
Not this I understand.
Right.
Okay.
So I think if Energizer batteries bunny ever retires, I will possibly want to apply to that job, right?
So you're that person. You're built like that.
Yeah. So I think there's so much to be done in life, right? And I love the fact that I have these multiple passions. I cherish each one of them. I think each one of them presents unique learning opportunities for me. Most importantly, I have diverse set of friends thanks to each of these passions.
Which is important.
Yeah. And also, by the way, I think one of the reasons because of which I'm able to find time for all of this is because I do all of this. because it gives me that energy. It gives me that
No
cook.
wonder you can come back the next day and say, I'm going to run my business also.
Absolutely.
You have that diversified
Absolutely.
interest.
Absolutely.
What have you been reading?
I don't read much, to be very honest.
Good to know.
I think, I'm going to be very honest, I think the whole concept of reading books as the preferred way of knowledge or gathering knowledge, I think is slightly overrated.
I think so too.
Different people have different ways of learning.
You're one of the few people who've been very honest about it. A lot of people quote books just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
It can be overrated then, but you're right. So in your case, it's always the outdoors that's kept you alive.
No, so I think...
And the knowledge comes from the fact that you meet so many diversified people and they're in
I actually read a lot of journals.
You do?
I do read a lot of journals, right? I do a lot of topical reading, right? Which means if business is of interest, then I will definitely, very, very proudly, I possibly subscribe to every single, subscription journal out there today, right? Yeah. So I read a lot of journals, right? Which is what I have time for, to be very honest. And as far as reading fiction is concerned, that's something which never really interested me a lot. But I think today, the kind of content on OTT, right? I think the content is phenomenal. I would rather possibly just watch something which helps me understand about diverse cultures.
What are you watching then?
Oh, I just finished Jack Ryan season 3 yesterday, and I learned so much about Russia. I learned and I've spent
so much
time
about
in Russia.
East European politics.
Absolutely. So
that's one you'd recommend right away today.
Right away.
Great. Then, Anish, thanks always. More than that, we're friends. We've known each other for a while.
Most importantly,
I want to do this again.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And you guys check out TagZ, and the website is
TagZfoods.com.
There you go. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely a pleasure.